Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to check and say, yes, here we go. Everyone, mute your sound, please, as we're going to continue with the service. And I will first light my Christ candle and take a breath. As we light the Christ candle, we acknowledge the presence and the power of the Christ. That Christ lives within each of us, that energy force. We are it, and it is us. And now we'd like to have our wonderful speaker this morning. Dr. Will Tuttle with us today. And as most of you know, he's an acclaimed composer, pianist, and educator. And he is going to play the Lord's Prayer for us. Thank you, Will. Well, thank you, Will. Beautiful, beautiful, as usual. So now I'd like to read our invocation affirmation. And just remember, this is who we are. First, there is only one presence and one power active in my life, God, the good, omnipotent. Then there is only one presence and one power active in unity, Clear Lake Center, God, the good, omnipotent. Finally, there is only one presence and one power active in our world, God, the good, omnipotent. And the basic foundation of unity is the five ideas. First, God is absolute good everywhere present. Second, human beings have a spark of divine spirit within them, the Christ consciousness within. Therefore, they are inherently good. Human beings create their experience by the activity of their thinking. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. And number four, prayer is the process that affirms our connection with God mind and brings forth wisdom, healing, and everything good. Finally, knowing and understanding universal laws, also called truths, are not enough. A person must also live the truth that he or she knows. And now, I'd like to welcome Will to play something of his choice for the next song. Thank you, Will.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Barbara. Yeah, I'll go ahead and play a short piece of music. I'm sitting here in the living room of our home in Hidden Valley Lake, and I'm at a grand piano, as you can probably tell. So, this is a piece I composed for the Sky High album. It's called Let's see, this is called Joy of Sky, and I think it gives a feeling, at least to me, of the infinite power of what we refer to as the sky. We look up and we see this blue, and what is that actually? Where are we? So this is the joy of sky. Right.
Oh, well, you give me chills. I love it so much. You play the piano so beautifully, and in person at church will be fabulous whenever that happens again. But this is wonderful. I'm still have chills. Thank you, thank you. So, well, I would like to go ahead now and read the daily word for. Here we go. For Sunday, July the 9th, and it is on power. Okay, I look within and discover my power. Great power lies within me like a treasure chest full of gold and precious jewels buried in my own backyard. It is so close that I sometimes overlook it, leading me to search near and far, seeking strength and value outside myself. Yet my power is in my potential, a gift for me to discover. I am endowed with wisdom, love, and creativity, gemstones meant to be uncovered and shared with the world. I am rich in my capacity to use these gifts to reach goals and create my life intentionally. As I think, speak, and behave in accordance with my divine abilities, I share my treasures. I bring into the light the hidden parts of myself, knowing my power comes from expressing my best self. For we are what He has made us, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand to be our way of life. From Ephesians 2:10. Well, I think that Will is going to talk about how to bring light to the hidden parts within us. That is our power. So I'd like to give the service over to you, Will, at this time. Thank you, Will.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Barbara. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here on this beautiful Sunday morning in California. And I'll go ahead and maybe I'd like to invite us just to begin. We'll have a short meditation, just a pretty short one here, just because we don't have that much time and I want to be able to share some ideas. But let's go ahead and take a moment and join together in consciousness for this meditation time. So just allowing our minds to become quiet and relaxed in this present moment. So we give thanks for this beautiful opportunity of a human life. With every exhalation, we allow ourselves to relax into this present moment. The only holy moment is this moment right now. As we breathe, we let go of any thoughts of the past or the future and allow our minds to abide in this moment, in the inner sanctuary of silence, of loving kindness, of gratitude, of joy. And we give thanks for all of the spiritual teachings of all the traditions that help us to awaken to the truth that we are. We open to all of the wisdom that shines at the core of our being. Reflected in the world around us. We give thanks for all the teachers who have come into our lives. to help reveal to us more of the truth of being, of the infinite interconnectedness of all life, to reveal the truth that what we are was never born and will never die. And we give thanks for all of the communities dedicated to healing and to awakening, to helping humanity during these challenging times to remember. We give thanks knowing that the light that shines in the very heart of the universe is shining in every cell of our being, in our heart and in every aspect of our life, bringing every dimension of our life and our being into alignment with our purpose for this lifetime. And we just allow the music now to deepen our connection with the truth that we are, as we listen in the silence abiding in our true home, in love, in awareness, in freedom, in radiant health and wellness, in joy and harmony, in abundance, in compassion, in creativity, in kindness, in truth. May all beings be happy and free. May all beings be at peace. May we all realize the original brightness of our minds and hearts. And may we continue, all of us, to work together to build a more enlightened society, a world that cares for everyone, a world that reflects the inner Christ truth of infinite life. We give thanks knowing this is so. And so it is. Thank you, everyone, for joining together in the meditation. And so I'd like to go ahead and talk a little bit about the theme of today's message, which is really the question of our life as a human being and the fact that we all know for sure, I think probably we all agree on this one thing, that we will leave this body. And that's guaranteed. So for many people, that's a thought that we would rather not ever talk about or think about too much because it's kind of depressing or frightening to think that we're going to die, we're going to pass on. And yet I think it's really different than that, and it's something that we should, in our society especially, begin to look at more carefully. There's this whole movement. I see it. I've been watching it kind of in the background of people wishing that they could somehow transfer their consciousness into a computer so they can live forever. You know, you have some of these people that work at Google and these computer type people. Ray Kurzweil is a good example, who have this idea that we're just basically a material thing, and if we should try to keep the body alive as long as we can, but if we can't do that, we could maybe make ourselves immortal by uploading our consciousness into a computer, and then we can just live on forever. And so, to me, this is a manifestation of the underlying delusion, really at the core of our society, which is materialism. We live in a society where we're taught from the time we're little kids that we're this body. This is it. You know, we're in Sanskrit. That's rupa. Rupa means form, and that we have a name, right? Which in Sanskrit the word is nama. So the whole idea is we kind of orient ourselves around nama rupa, name and form, and we give a name to everything, and we see things at the surface level, and we look at each other and we see, oh yeah, you're so and so, and you have this body. And then we make judgments on that and how people look. And so this really, in the Buddhist tradition, is called samsara, which means suffering that never ends. I mean, it's avidya, which is ignorance, but it leads to samsara. It leads to suffering that never ends, because as long as we identify with the physical body, then our mind is never going to be at peace, because we can always be harmed by something. We could always get something. We could always be more comfortable. We could always compete in some way and do better or be approved by more people. So it's a never-ending physical and psychological wheel of suffering. And so the underlying idea, of course, in the West, it's kind of interesting. And more or less in the West, we have this underlying assumption, either one of two things. Either this is all there is. You have this one life. You're just matter. You were born, and you just do the best you can, and then you die, and then that's it. It's over. That's materialism, and that is a philosophy that's pretty widespread, and it's a philosophy for slaves. We have to really understand that very clearly. If you want slaves, then that's what you teach them. And it's got nothing to do with reality, but it's great if you want to have slaves, because then you have people who are easily controllable, who are shallow, who will look out for themselves, try to get what they can get, and be afraid of disease, and be afraid of governmental authority, and all these things. So that's a philosophy of slaves, and it was created really by a slave society, because as I talk about in the World Peace Diet, we enslave animals by the millions, and after 10,000 years of enslaving animals, and seeing them merely as matter and selling them by the pound, right? I mean, we sell millions of animals by the pound every day, like they're just rocks. Cows, pigs, chickens, all these animals, fish, they're sold by the pound. So we have this mentality of turning everything into matter. And it's not our fault. We're just born into it. It's 10,000 years started about 10,000 years ago in Iraq, as I talk about in the World Peace Diet. So this philosophy of materialism reduces everything to matter, not only animals, but nature and ourselves. And pretty soon we just say, oh, well, the universe is this kind of random thing. There was a big bang for some reason, no one knows why. And then out of this big bang, just by random mutation, gases kind of bumped into each other and made molecules and made cells. And out of that, somehow we have brains and make music. And, I mean, that's actually, can you believe it? I mean, that's actually taught in schools as the way like reality started. You can't think of something more ridiculous and absurd and absolutely comically pathetic than that, but that's what is taught. And people actually believe, and scientists, who are really like the high priests of our society, that's what they're supposed to believe. I mean, it's comically pathetic. Like the basic idea is, give us one miracle and then we'll take it from there, right? I mean, materialists think that, we give us a big bang and then after that, okay, but that's the problem. So that philosophy of slavery has been injected into all of us on some level. So in the West, we tend to think in those terms, or that there's a heaven or a hell that lasts forever, which is also, in many ways, from my point of view, a philosophy of slavery too, because then what you're going to like, because of whatever good or bad things you do, then for literally infinite time, you're going to be in a place of total joy or total misery. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's not the way nature works. And we look around us, we see everything is continuing to always change and evolve. And so, of course, in the Eastern traditions, which were less dominated by animal agriculture, there's the idea of rebirth. And so I want to talk a little bit about that too, because I think it's kind of interesting. It's a few interesting things, but the idea is that what we are is consciousness that is eternal. And we are, this awareness is of the nature of infinite love and power and awareness. And we are manifesting through a vehicle for a little while, based basically on the qualities of our consciousness, and the idea that whatever we sow, we will reap. So these are underlying spiritual teachings that are in all the world's religions. The golden rule: don't do to others what we wouldn't want to have done to ourselves, because everything boomerangs back. Whatever we do, not only that, but we're all interconnected. There's one life living through all of us. So the whole idea, really, I think, in all spiritual traditions is to awaken out of the delusion of materialism and understand that what we are is infinite and eternal consciousness. And when we understand, get a glimpse of that, and I think it's not easy to get a glimpse, because as long as the mind is busy, it's always revolving around me and my problems and what I'm going to do, or what I wish I would have done, or what I wish I would not have done, or I wish they would have done, or this continual mind chatter, and that continually reinforces this sense of me as a fundamentally separate self in a world of other separate selves, and we're basically manipulating each other to get what we want and keep away what we don't want. And so that whole thing, and it's really aggravated by an economic system that's based on people who with more money and power controlling those with less. And so this whole system is really based on this delusion, and it reinforces it through a competitive economic system, through a medical system based on fear and on being attacked by germs and by genes that just give us things that are going to happen with no explanation. All these things are based on slavery, to enslave people and come out of that idea. So what spirituality is liberation. It's liberating us from these delusions. And so first of all, we need to understand that we're consciousness. We're here for just a few short decades. And the underlying teaching is this: you have never been more dead than you are right this second. Right now. This is as dead as you'll ever be. Right now. It only gets more, you only get more alive than this. Because right now, living in this society, most of us have had our consciousness quite reduced just to be here, to kind of believe in all these stories that we're told. And one of the neat things to do, I think, is to just read some of the research of people who have had near-death experiences. I mean, it's a massive literature. I remember going way back And when I used to teach Plato in college, Plato's Republic, and there's the myth of Ur, this warrior, his name is Ur. He leaves his body, and in the war, and he comes, and all these things happen, but then he comes back and he tells about it, and what it's like, and how the people are still alive, after they leave their bodies. And we have this basic idea, this understanding, because when people go into a meditative state, we can realize this. And so in the Buddhist tradition, this is an example. There's the basic idea of the six realms, which I think is important just to be aware that the human realm is just one of six realms, which are all within the realm of form. But then there's formless realms, and even beyond that, there's other realms. So there's the whole idea is that there's really, in the Buddhist tradition, for example, an infinite variety of possible domains or realms where a being can manifest consciousness and have a vehicle. And consciousness always has some kind of a vehicle. It might be in another domain or dimension. We may not be able to see it, another dimension. So the six realms are the devas, which are the god beings who live lives of pure joy and love and freedom and comfort and ease. Then there's the asura realm, which is right below that, which are they call the titans, or the jealous gods. And they're gods too, but they're always competing with each other. They're very powerful, but they're very competitive with each other. Then the third one down is the human realm, which is, what that is. Here we are. That's the human realm. Then the fourth level down is the animal realm, which is all the different animals. Then the fifth level down is called the preta realm, or the hungry ghost realm. And those are beings who suffer a lot because they suffer mainly from never getting enough to eat. They're always hungry. And they're depicted as these beings with very big mouths who are always wanting to eat something, but their throat is so small they can't actually swallow it. And so they're always kind of frustrated and can never get enough. And then the lowest, the sixth of the six realms, are the hell realms. And there's many different levels of that. And that's the realms of suffering, basically, just going on suffering. So the basic idea is that in our life, however we act in this incarnation, basically, if we're in a human,
Will is
then we
presenting
will.
to a Unity congregation in California right now. So they're,
So,
a Zoom thing you can attend
Marina,
live.
I think can you?
I wasn't able to go to the one here in Madison earlier. I thought they streamed it live, but apparently.
Can somebody mute Marina? That would be good. Okay, so
Sorry.
all right. So anyway, so the idea is that the way we live our lives is sows the seeds for our future incarnations. So the whole idea is, if you want to know how your past was, just look at yourself right now. Right? This is it. This is how we are. So in a way, if we can be grateful for who we are right now, we can really heal the entire past of all our incarnations. But the idea is also, however we live our life now, we'll be sowing the seeds for the future. And but in the Buddhist tradition, which I think is very interesting, none of these realms are permanent. They all change. And so even if you're born into a God realm, for example, at a certain point, all of the merit that you accumulated that let you be born in that God realm, all the wonderful, loving, kind things you did to help other people, sooner or later that's going to run out, and then you're going to be born again, and you may end up in an animal realm or a human realm, whatever. So the whole idea is that this goes on and on as long as we don't understand the truth of our being, which is that we are not a fundamentally separate self. We are the infinite life itself living. And when we awaken to that awakening liberates us out of these different realms. And the human realm is considered the best of all possible realms, because the upper realms are a little bit they're too nice. There's not enough difficulties and challenges. The lower realms are just too many difficulties and challenges, and it's like overwhelming. So the human realm is kind of like, remember Goldilocks and the Three Bears? It's just the right amount of suffering, and just the right amount of joy and beauty, so that we can hear the teachings, we can realize through the effects of our actions that if we cause suffering to others, it boomerangs back, it hurts them and it hurts us, and we're all interconnected, and we can actually make efforts to bring us in a positive direction. And so the human life is considered the most precious of all, and the whole idea is to dedicate it really to two things. Number one is to quieting the mind and connecting with the source of what we are, and then number two, to live a life of service, of kindness and caring and blessing of others. The more we bless others, the more quiet our mind will actually be. The more we'll feel at peace when we go to meditate. And the more we do that, the more we'll realize that it's like my hand, right? All these different fingers look like they're separate, but they're here. There's one hand. They're here to work together and express. And we're like fingers on a hand. All of us, we're interconnected. Once we understand that, then the whole idea of trying to be better or compete with or criticize other fingers, and we start to see the best in others, and we start to see beyond the form, and then we become healers. And it's interesting, when I was in Korea, one of the things they do is, I gotta check the time here. Okay, a few more minutes. Is cremate all the monks, right? All the monks get cremated, and it's done in a big ceremony. So it's very interesting, because I was there and saw all this. And so what happens when someone dies, one of the monks dies, they make a huge bonfire, and then a few days after the body's dead, then they take the body and they put it into the fire, and the fire just burns the whole body up. And then they go back later, after it all cools down, and they sift through the ashes of the fire. And 99 times out of 100, or maybe even more, that's all there is. There's just, there's just ashes and some charred wood. But if the monk was a highly realized being, whose meditation had gone very deep, they find jewels, actual jewels in the ashes. And so when I was I was living in Oakland, and I went down to Carmel and did a retreat with Master Kusan Sunim, who was a great Zen master. And he was in his 70s or 80s, I guess, when he came over to California, and I went on a 1 week long meditation retreat with him, and it was very powerful. I mean, I have to say, this guy you could tell he was there. He wasn't just giving a spiritual teaching like intellectually. He was living it, and he was always challenging everyone to realize the truth. He would say things like, "So tell me, what is it when a boulder sprouts an eyeball? Speak, speak." You have to be able to know what he's talking about, that everything is conscience, everything is aware. If we knew, we're walking around asleep. From his point of view, we're all asleep. He's trying to wake us up. But he had gone through extremely intense meditation practice. I read his biography. This is a biography of him. It's called Nine Mountains, and he had a tremendous enlightenment experience. He was meditating, sitting, and he got frustrated because he was dozing off, and so he was all by himself in the woods, and he did a standing meditation, and he just stood there. And he just stood for day after day after day. He never stopped standing, and he got into a deep meditation, so deep that birds were coming, and they were taking the material out of his clothes to build nests, because they thought he was just a thing standing there. And finally, out of that, he had a tremendous awakening experience, and he realized at a deep level. So he became the Zen master at Songwangsa Monastery, which is where I ended up going. I shaved my head and became a Zen monk at Songwangsa Monastery. And he passed away, and then there was this big fire, and then all the monks went through the ashes, and there was this big, huge red jewel near his heart, a big black jewel in his skull of bones, and then his bones themselves were like rainbow colored. They were all red, blue, green. They were beautiful jewels. It was really interesting. And all over Asia, there are stupas, what are called stupas, or pagodas. They're these special Buddhist monuments. And why do they build them? They build them to house these relics of great meditators who, when they are cremated, they're these jewels appear. And so there's jewels, they're all over the place. Because this is because there's been many enlightened people who lived in China and Korea and Japan, in Vietnam over the centuries. And of course, this is completely unknown in the West, and they have no idea. But it's very interesting because they can tell after you die if you were really a good meditator or not. Then they do the test. You get the test at the end, and so there's quite a few, and there's of course quite a few stories of other things. I mean, lots of different things, stories that, again, we can't really explain. I mean, like in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there's a whole tradition called the rainbow body, which is there's not even a body. I mean, they actually transform their body into a rainbow, and it's gone. It's just gone. Milarepa and a few others have done that, but anyway, the idea is that when we awaken out of the delusion that we are this form and the name and the whole collection of memories, which drives us and propels us into greed and into fear and into anger and into all these jealousy and all these things that really are a contraction of ignorance. When we as we free ourselves from that, we begin to connect with our true nature, and we begin to realize that what we are, again, was never born and will never die. And I remember when I was in high school, and then in high school I started to read Emerson and Thoreau. As you know, I was born and raised in Concord, Massachusetts, and these guys were starting to bring, back in the 1800s, these teachings from Asia into North America, and they influenced a lot of people, and they influenced also Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman, the great poet, was also a great mystic. And when I was in college, I discovered his poetry. And I remember reading in one of his poems, I think it was Song of Myself, where he writes, "And to die is lucky, and I know it." And I think, that's very, very important clue. And to die is lucky, and I know it. There's something in that. And I think the whole idea really for us as human beings is to live our lives so that when we get to that moment when we're going to leave our body, we will not have any regrets. We will have come here and fulfilled our mission as best we could, whatever our mission is. And no one can tell someone else what their mission is. But we're here to, each one of us, to discover that and fulfill that. And as each one of us does that, we naturally encourage others to do the same thing. There's nothing more inspiring than to see someone who's really, living their life authentically. So I think that our death is our great ally. The fact that our life is temporary, the transiency is what conveys beauty. Without transiency, there's no beauty. Beauty is really comes out of this idea. It's temporary. A flower is beautiful because, and a sunset and all these things, a full moon, because they're just there for a little while. So just don't miss it, that idea. And our life is the same way. Every day is different. We can be grateful for every moment. And as we live our lives as an expression of gratitude and treat everything with gratitude, I think that's the key thing. Like, a lot of people feel unhappy because they don't feel like they are loved. And I think one of the most important things really is to understand that the secret to being loved is to be loving. And there's always an opportunity to be loving. If I'm washing the dishes, I can be loving to the dishes. I can be loving to the dish towel, and I can hang it up with a feeling of appreciation, and I can put the dishes away with a feeling of appreciation. And guaranteed, if I actually feel that, I won't never have to worry about feeling loved, because being loving is the secret to understanding that we're not fundamentally separate, that we are a flow of consciousness, and we're here really to be creative. I think that's the underlying thing, that as we connect with our creativity, then we're fulfilling our destiny in whichever way is unique for that. And we all depend on each other for this, for the teachings. So in the Zen tradition, there's a couple of sayings that are interesting. One is, if you die before you die, then when you die, you won't die, right? That's an important one. If you die before you die, then when you die, you won't die. And as you can see, what I'm saying, what that's driving at is that when we die to the delusion of being a separate self, then we know that what we are can never die. I mean, we are life itself, infinite and eternal. And that's liberation. There's another Zen saying too, which kind of is the polar opposite of that, which is that life is like, getting born, right? Getting born and having a life is like stepping onto a ship and heading out onto the water, knowing that for sure the boat is going to sink. That's really what it is, right? And again, that's guaranteed. The boat is going to sink. But what we are, that's the thing. What we are can never sink. So this will help us, I think, to understand that each life has its own unique purpose, and that the greatest blessing we can really convey to others is to live our own purpose from this bigger perspective. Once we see that, then we're not going to be afraid of things, of diseases or of authorities or all these things, because we realize that we're greater than that, and everyone's greater than that. And we can begin to be healers. We can look beyond the outer form and see the best in other people. But we can't do that until we do that in ourselves. So it looks to me, I'm just checking the time here, that I should probably wrap it up. It's been really an honor to be able to share some of these ideas, because I think understanding death is really the key to understanding life. If we are afraid of death, we're going to be afraid to live. And it's a big problem in our society of materialism. Materialism is a contraction. So the more we can liberate others, the more we can free others, the more we can not be a cause of death too. That's one of the most important things, to let every being live. That's one of the reasons I've been a vegan now for 43 years. Don't cause others to be killed. Don't cause others to lose this precious opportunity of a life. We all have a purpose. And when we do that, we sow the seeds of harmony and joy and freedom and peace and for our future.
Let's hear the end of Will Tuttle.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your kind attention. And I'll turn it back to Barbara. Thanks.
Oh, Will, I think you brought some tears to my eyes. I loved your talk. You're just amazing. You're wonderful. Thank you. And I'm so glad that you invited your friends. That's the tricky part, is that they to be on mute. But it's okay. It's okay.
Right.
And for anybody who joined late, this is being recorded and will be released later in the day. That you can then watch it again, like I often do, because there's so much wonderful stuff in your message. Beautiful, beautiful. So sure. So now I would just like to quickly go through, and also people, we will stay and chat if. And so if you want to join in, I think I'd like to hear a few more things from Will in the app. That would be at the end of the service. So if you'd like to just stay and listen or have a question for Will or something, that's a good time to do it. So I would, a few announcements just about our Unity Church over there in Lower Lake and whatever else we're doing. So at church, Patricia will be there, our leader, next Sunday, and she's speaking on Lessons in Truth, our own secret place where Source resides. And of course, she is fabulous. So join us if you're a local person. We'd love to have you at church starting at 10:30. And then the following week, Zoom service, Reverend Margaret Flick, who is fabulous also, and she'll be on the Zoom service. And Bill Barrows will be there with the music. So it's always wonderful. And then at the end of the month, we're going to have an Community Sunday, and it is going to be with Sarah Merlin, and she promises to have live music, and we're going to have a potluck, and we're just going to enjoy fellowship at church on July the 30th. Again, we start around 10:30. So that, and then to just say too that, of course, donations are greatly appreciated. So we just ask you to mail to Unity P.O. Box 755, Lower Lake 95457. And what I like to do is go ahead and do the prayer for protection. Will lead us in Let There Be Peace on Earth. So think about these words. I often say them to myself when I need reminding. The light of God surrounds us. And then, I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, because I am, and all is wonderful. And we would like Will now to lead us in Let There Be Peace on Earth.
Okay, I'll go ahead and play Let There Be Peace on Earth.